Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this video where I'll be teaching you how to paint some beautiful summer lilacs. And in this lesson, we're going to be painting on a larger canvas. This is a 12 by 12. And I'm going to also go over, people asked, how do you make paintings that are larger and looser and have drips? So we'll be working in acrylic today, and I'll be able to show you how people who have drips in their paintings, how it comes about. So we'll try to do all those things, and we'll try to have some fun. So I'm going to start off with, I've got out my water, I've got my spritzer to spray my acrylics with, and I've got all my colors listed on the side here. To make room, I kind of covered them up a bit, but I'll just go down the list. I got yellow ochre, and these are all golden acrylic. So I use golden just because I like the thickness, and I like the opacity. So and I've got out yellow ochre, cad yellow light, cad red medium, alizarin, sap green, viridian, orange. This is transparent red oxide, brown oxide, cobalt, ultramarine blue, quinacridone red, and this is some dioxazine violet. So in this painting, I'm looking at the reference photo, and I've got there's a lot of pink and white flowers. I also have a reference photo where they're mainly this dark fuchsia color. It's kind of like a magenta, and I like the position of these, but I kind of, to keep it simple, I'm going to go with something kind of like this, not as pink. I want it to be a little bit more that bluey, lilac-y color that you see. For some reason, there's a lot this color on the internet, but I like that nice, like they call it lilac blue, you know. But I like the position kind of these. So we're going to go with something a little simpler because this is way more complicated than I want to do. But I'm going to keep that in mind for the composition. Okay, so to start off, I want to have a good base color for this. So I'm going to mix up. I have a color called green gold, and I'm just going to kind of cover the canvas in something like that, just because I want to have some of that those bright greens underneath, and you'll see how it works with when we block in some of the pink. So there's Indian yellow, and that's golden, and then this is a golden color called green gold, which if you don't have green gold, you can take some sap and some Indian yellow, and you can mix up your own. Of course, if you add more Indian yellow to the sap, you get a more darker green. And if you go with just Indian yellow, you get that nice warm golden color. So I don't worry too much about that. I just want to get something down here. And this is just a cheapy canvas from Michael's, and I buy them for just kind of demos and stuff like that, and put a layer of gesso. And if you buy this, if you just put a layer of this liquid Liquitex acrylic medium gesso, your canvas just becomes like a higher quality canvas right away. So you don't, that's one way of getting around spending a bunch of money on your canvas. So now I've got a layer of that on there. Just gonna rinse that brush off a bit and put it aside. And then I'm gonna go and get, while this is wet, I'm gonna go and get some of that quinacridone red, And I'm going to mix some of that ultramarine blue in there just to get a nice sort of bluey purple color. So I'm just going to block in some of the shapes where those lilacs are going to go. And now, because I'm filming this video with my canvas flat down, if this were on an easel, so if this were like this on an easel, it's hard to see because the camera's now coming down. And I was painting on a larger canvas. I'm going to be using water, and I'm going to be using my paint. And what ends up happening when you're doing all this is, especially if I have it like this, and it's usually in large paintings where you see the drips. You don't usually see drippy paintings that are tiny, but you're working away like this, and it's sort of what happens is you get some of those drips, and so they just naturally come from when you're working on a large canvas and you're trying to get that paint on there, and you're using your water and your mediums, and mostly it's just, I think people, when you're painting that scale, you're just using basically some water in there, and that's what causes these drips. So you're dabbing away, and you can see those drips are forming. Now, if I wanted them and I really wanted that look, like some people just love it, I'm gonna even help them out. You can take your brush and really get those drips going. And you could do this with oil if you were using lots of turp, but you tend to see them more in underpaints and in acrylic, but I don't see them a lot in oil. But so that's how you're going to get those drips to form. So this is what it looks like. So my lilacs are all drippy, and you can imagine if you're working on a large scale, you've got like a 3 foot by 3 foot canvas, you can really make it look dramatic. You know, you got the drama of the drip. So yeah, a lot of people love it. Some people are snobby about it and say, well, you know, you don't need to show that you are working that fast and that with that much medium and all the rest. So some people get snobby about it and say it's not necessary. Now I'm just going to kind of dab away some of that because to show my point, I added a lot of paint there. So this is just acrylic, so it'll dry really quick and gives me a chance to clean up that area there. And when I'm working on a small little palette like this, I'll kind of clean up my palette too, so I have more room. And another thing I do is when I'm working with acrylic, this is really messy, I'll have like another plastic mixing thing like this just to mix my paint on. So I'm going to go in and kind of clean up that color. It kind of it got a little muddy because I was trying to show you the drip thing. So I'm going to get a little bit of that quinacridone red and some of that ultramarine blue again, and I'm just going to put in a little bit of that color that I wanted. And this is just what number is this? Like a number 1, it's called. And I've had this brush forever, so it's from Canada. But you can get brushes like this at Blick Art. Utrecht Art Supplies or any of those places. And while I'm at it, I'm gonna go and get some of that. I'll get some of that Viridian green. I'm adding a little touch of that transparent red oxide to it so it's not so crazy green, and I'm gonna put in some of those greens right off the bat. So just gonna use that big brush again and put in some greens. If your Viridian's too bright, you can use your sap green, whatever you like to use. So just put in some of those leafy shapes here and there. And like to have some going off the page here just because it kind of grounds the painting a little to have, you know, to have this stronger base of the green here. And I'll put a few, even though this thing looks crazy and messy, I'm going to put a few of the stems in right now just to show where everything's going. Like that. Okay. So, now that that's all kind of blocked in, I'm going to switch to a little smaller brush. And I'm going to probably at this point change my water so it's kind of clean. It's pretty messy. So I'll do that and then I'll come right back. Okay, so now I've got clean water and this is sort of drying up a little bit. I'm going to think about, you know, mixing up a nice color for those lilacs. So I'll probably go with, let me just put out some more ultramarine blue to add to my pile here. And I'm using, of course, the golden. And then I'm going to just put out a little more white, I think. My palette's a little messy because I was filming another lesson before, and then it just saves me time not to change up all the paint again. And I hate wasting paint, so I don't want to throw it all away. But once in a while, you got to clean it up. And so you can use one of these things. I get them at Michael's. It all peels off clean, but this is all dry. So I know it's not the nicest to look at, but I'm going to use it to mix up some of that lilac blue. So I'm putting down some of that ultramarine. And I use a little bit of quinacridone red. And I'll use some of my white. Because I prefer the lilacs to have this kind of bluey purple color. And I couldn't find any good reference photos like that. So going off the reference photos I have, and if you're watching this and you're a Patreon member, you'll get all the reference photos and sort of the extra stuff that I do for Patreon. So you'll see this darker purple with the light pink. So you just follow the same sort of pattern of dark to light. So I'm going to start off by blocking in some of those lilac-y shapes in that darker kind of blue, and I'm just gonna dab it like this. That's the way I do it. They have like kind of 4 petals that go like that sort of, so you can do a few that are more realistic, but I kind of want to make this more of a loose painting that you could easily translate into a larger scale painting. And if you were to do this on a large canvas, it would look amazing. So you might want to try that out. I definitely want to, but right now my kids are in school and I've got to go get them at like 2 in the afternoon, starting with my daughter, and my days are short. So I'm going to kind of go with this. So if you put this down here, and why it's kind of fun, like I know it's good to, like, you know, really follow your reference photo closely if you're doing like a smaller still life or something. But you know, when I'm working on larger scale, what's kind of nice is you're kind of more free to just improvise a little and just enjoy making those paint marks with your paintbrush. So and I learned from people who are more classically trained. So I kind of have I know how to do that other stuff, and to me it's just kind of boring. I'd rather just play with the color and the paint and make something a little bit more abstract. And this is probably some people super realism. So it all depends what you compare it to. So I'm just gonna make a few little marks, and you can see this is going to be my darker value of the purple. And then there's the whole challenge of acrylic paint kind of drying a little darker than oil does. So oil is kind of what you see is what you get with the color. But then what I found with probably one of the more challenging things is painting when you paint with acrylic is basically the fact that it does dry so different than what you think. So what I'm looking at is these different shapes, and of course you never want these things lined up in a row like this. That would be way too boring. Same with these. You want them kind of doing their thing at different heights. So you wouldn't want them all curving like at this same. And it's easy, and you can laugh about it because it does happen. You know, I've done it with tulips where they're all perfectly, or it goes boom, boom, boom. So just make sure your lines are not all perfectly lined up. That's your flowers. So we got a nice base. And you look at your composition, you're basically happy with it. That's kind of what all you can do. So from there, I'm gonna go and mix up another color we've got the sort of darker tone. I'm gonna mix up a kind of a different tone for the next layer. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure I got all that done, and now I'm going to we can try mixing different versions of this. So you could try using even some cobalt and white and just see how it turns out. So I'm going to try that. I think it's good to try different things. And I use the quinacridone red because a lot of my students paint in oil, and this whole palette is translatable into oil. Now, you could use acrylic painters have a color that we don't have in oil. We have permanent rose. You guys have magenta, this is, I think, quinacridone red, but the magenta is even better. But I only used quinacridone red because it's available in oil and in acrylic. And like, that's why when I teach, I want everyone to be able to practice using their favorite medium, and I paint the same in pretty much both. So now I'm making a little bit of a different value, so you can see it's a little bit lighter than this layer. And so we're looking at this value of dark, kind of mid-tone, and light. Then in between, you've got the lightest light, little dashes of it to show in the edges of these flowers in the shadow. So we're trying to keep it simple so that you get the concept and everyone can kind of paint along and not get overly academic in thinking too hard. So we don't want that. We want it to be fun. So I'm just going to keep blotching down some of that lighter color. I want to get it even maybe a little lighter and maybe even a little on the pinker side for the light, but not too pink. I don't want it to be too pink. So let's see. Okay. Just adding a little cobalt to blue it up a little. Not blow it up, blue it up. Okay, so I'm just gonna dab here some of that, and I'm gonna add a little more of that cobalt. Same within this area here. Just kind of, I'm using the corner edge of my brush. I didn't really think about it. I just sort of, and you can make the odd flower, you know, and this is just a quick and easy way to do it. To get that next level up of value. And then I'm just going to mix a little water in there, a little bit more blue. I always like to mix as I go. I'll add some, you know, I'm adding a little more cobalt to this. And I do that so they're not all the same. Nothing's the same in real life, so just kind of mix it up a little. Okay. So now I'm gonna go and add more cobalt because I want those highlights to be kind of a light, more of a bluey color, if that makes sense. So when you mix, don't mix all the white in right away because then you're right back to the square one again, mixing that base color. We always add white a little bit at a time so you're not having to start over. And now I can start adding some of those little edges to show that those other petals are down there getting some light. So I'm just adding more like some little lines and dots down there. And I'm going to add a little more white to my mixture of paint. And just going to add a few lighter petals up on those ones curving over there. And then in the shadow, I just use the edge of my brush like this. You can see I'm kind of curving the marks a little to show that this is a round, kind of like a cone. But now it's starting to take some gets a little more dimension and shape. You just want to be careful. Don't continue the light too far down, or you'll lose that shape. And I'll get a little more white and mix that in. And doesn't matter if some more of that quinacridone red came in there, because I'll use a little variety there. Okay, so now we're gonna switch brushes. I was using, this is just a number 8. It's a bright, and these are just this one I got here at Utrecht. It's their finest interlocked ultra is what it's called, but they're really not that expensive. And I'm gonna switch to this Princeton brush. It's a number 4 flat. So before I move on, I want to have put in a few little more details on this. If anything, I kind of do it before I go onto the leaves, just to let it will dry a bit, and I'll be able to see if how dark it dries, because that's the main struggle I have with the acrylics, is it does dry a little darker. So I moved to a smaller brush so I could do a little bit more of those details. So you can make a few squiggles here and there, just to show some of those edges. This is just a little cobalt white and quinacridone red. I get water in there so it's easier to apply, and just sort of dab some of those shapes by kind of squiggling a few of those little curvy lines in there, here and there. And it gives it that fun look, lilac-y look. All those little tiny edges on those millions of little petals, you know. And you can even add a little more white and some cobalt, so you switch up the color a little for this one over here, maybe. You know, just kind of variety is always good. You don't want them all to look exactly the same. So you can see those kind of show up a little there. Just put a few of those little squiggles in here and there. Adds a whole little more of a delicate shape to the flower. Like that. Okay, so for now, well, before I move on, I can see it's gonna dry too dark up there, so I'm gonna add more white to the mix, cobalt, and mix up, even see if I can get the highlight to be a little lighter on some of these. And you can make some of these kind of just a little lighter, and kind of to bring this one out a bit, I'll put some lighter notes in front of this darker area here. Same with over here, I might bring some of that forward in front of this one. Like that. So now you can sort of see the light coming down. Okay, that gives it a little more, just a little more shape there. Okay, and I'm going to move on to greens for a little bit, and then I'll be able to kind of look back at what I need to do on these. So I'm going to go back to, we'll switch to a little bit larger brush for the leaves. So go back to like something like this. This is, says a 10, and I know it's a bright, so I'm going to get back into green. So I'm going to get a little bit of that cad yellow light and mix it in there into that darker green that I was using before. And I can pick out a few stems and things I want to add there. So I can just kind of add a few of those stems in there again. I can kind of see some of the ones I originally drew, but I lost some of them. So just go in and put a few of those nice green stems back in. And I'm just using the edge of that brush. And they don't need to be perfect, but they really add a lot to this, because you've got the purple, then you've got the nice green bits here and there. Just putting them on top of some of the purple flowers, but that's okay, because you can always go back if you wanted to correct that. You could always go back with your purple like this and kind of cover some of the green again. So just so you know what I'm doing there. Get some different shades of green. I'm trying to just make, you know, loose strokes here. Get some sap green and just blend some of that in, so you've got that shadow, and get some more light and put that on. So you can kind of blend if you go and you put some, like say I got this real bluey viridian like that, you know, I can go and add some cad yellow light to it, maybe a little bit of that transparent red oxide, but I can just blend in. See how that wet on wet technique works with the acrylic as well. Get that nice blendy look. Put some of that in here. If it's too green, just get some of that transparent red oxide and put it in there. And if you don't have transparent red oxide, because sometimes depending on where people live, it's hard to find. You can get it on Amazon, I know that much. You could use some, I think it's burnt sienna. So I'm just putting different greens. You notice I'm going back and forth, getting different greens. And I'm not stuck on one area. You know, I'm gonna dab some of that in between these purples again, because it's pretty and it looks good to have some greens like that up there. Get a little more of that add yellow light, and you could get a little white in there. Just get some little edges like this. Get some of those nice bright greens there. Just have fun with it, you know. You see that nice combo of green and purple, and The marks kind of look nice even if they're not like perfect, you know, just getting those colors together is really just a joy, you know. So you got all the leaves happening there. You can add a little more at that edge. Some of those nice little greens in there. So you can see the marks are still nice and loose. There's nothing too crazy going on. And now we can decide what color we want the sky to be. So I like painting this kind of bright yellow sort of behind because there's like little bits of it coming through and you can see that kind of glow that happens. But then, and you see, you know, we've got the drips. Now, if you really want to keep the drips, you can paint your background and kind of leave it like a lot of modern kind of paintings. You'll see this sort, for example, like I'll get some kind of a bluey color here. They'll go and paint like this and like that and leave some of those drippy marks coming through like that, you know. It's like, you know, I painted it for real. See, there's drips of paint. So yeah, if you want to make it look more modern, you can leave some of the drips. You can even put some of that layer down, that background layer down. And if you really want to get crazy, go get some of that cobalt and that purple on your brush and just sort of see how I flicked my brush and it made the drip kind of come down. I'll zoom in so you can see. Get that on my brush. I'll do it again. Really modern it up here. You can flick that purple paint around and it gets some nice marks. Looks kind of fun, you know. It's just good to play around and try different things. And then I'm gonna go and I think what I'll do is I'll go back to my little mixing board here and just mix up a light blue color for the background. And kind of keep with the loose strokes. You can leave some of that in and see how it looks. You can always edit the whole thing out later, but you can start by leaving a few of these brighter yellow marks and leave it kind of loose like that and see what, you know, how you like it. So before I continue on with this background, I'm going to make sure I got some, I want to get some more cobalt blue out. Okay, I've got more of that cobalt blue out on my little mixing board here. And I can go back to putting in my background. And I want to just make those brush strokes kind of loose and leave some of that bright gold green gold underneath to show. And then if you like it, you can leave it, and if you don't like it, you can get rid of it. And so I'm kind of quickly filling in, but I will move to a smaller brush around the, and I like to have variety of like light and dark marks in the background too. Get some lighter. Keeping with the whole texture of the flowers and everything, it can be just sort of fun to do that. So at this point you could switch to a smaller brush and fill in the last bits. So I'm going to go back to the smaller brush because then I can get in between some of the flowers, and I could even put a few dots coming through here and there. So I'm working with a number 4 flat right now. And I'm going to cut in some shapes into the flower. So you can just kind of use the edge of your brush. See how I'm kind of cutting in here and there. Like that. Maybe put a little bit of that color in here. Kind of have to go with your gut, what you like and what looks good and what doesn't look good to you. And if you want some more purple, kind of mix up some of this color you used for the purple flower, and you could take your, so I'd be working on a easel, of course, and you could get some water or the medium and just sort of dab a little bit until you get some of it dripping. So you get some of the different colors dripping on here. And some people really like that. Just it's hard when you've got it flat to make it do its thing. So you have to add a little bit of water to that paint to get it to drip, but it will drip. You just let it drip. I'm just letting it drip down. It's hard for me to show you. You can kind of see. But you'll be able to do it on your easel at home really easy. So now you can see some of those drips, and you can do some splatters. So get your brush in there. I've got lots of water in that color I used, and you can just take your finger and like a slingshot, you pull it back and just sort of flick. You can flick some on the green. That would look kind of cool. And there. So now I'll zoom in so you can see. You've got some real action happening. And then the next thing I like to do is add a few things to it, because right now it's kind of almost monochromatic. So I'll go get some like orange here. My orange is kind of drying out. Don't forget when you're working with acrylic to use your little spritz bottle. I'm going to get some orange and white and a little bit of that quinacridone red. and make sort of a corally. Here, I'll move that in a little so you can see. Kind of a nice corally color. Again, to kind of go with the purple and the green. I don't mind using a little bit of this pretty coral color just to emphasize the sun kind of coming down on that side of the lilacs, and it gives that sort of contrast of color that's just a little more interesting. So I'm going to put a bit of that on the edges. Gives it that kind of sunny glow. So put a bit of that around here. And then a few dabs in the sky. Just to have fun with these colors a little. And you want to go a little bit more back into the old school thinking. You want to get a little more value, contrast, go and mix up some of that ultramarine blue and quinacridone red and darker purple mix, and kind of go in and punch a few real darks in there so that you get that contrast. Put a little bit of that in there. So now you can see it's some of those leaves even pop out a bit more. Should have done that after I did the sprinkling of the paint, but cut in a few of those edges. So you can see it's a lot of fun to play with these things and just see what you get out of it, you know. This was a really quick demo, but you can take your time with with all the stuff that we did in this, and you know, take your time and do your lilacs just a little bit more slower, and you can work on some more of the details and whatnot. Just putting a few brighter or lighter blues in there. So I think for today, for painting lilacs, that's about it. But I look forward to doing more videos with you like this. And if you aren't a member of my Patreon channel, you can sign up in the link in the description. If you like my channel, help me grow my channel by becoming a subscriber, and you'll get notified whenever I post a new video. So thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye.